YouTube channel near you.
Well, Val, Skywalker, Moon at Noon, Gary Spikes, Denise, hello there. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you back. So you know what's going on tonight. Welcome, everybody. Yeah. The beer bomb. We got the beer oil, the lip balm, and the cream. It's now in stock. Thank you for joining us at Bigfoot Outlaw Partnering Up. Thank you. Check out our store. It's in the description. Also underneath our YouTube channel. Tracy, what's going on with you today, buddy?
Hey, not too much, Grizz. Just ready to get this thing going. Beautiful weather now. The storms have all passed up, and man, it's just a beautiful day. Glad to be here.
Right. Wonderful. Round of applause. Welcome, Moon at Noon. So what we got going on tonight?
Excited to have Mary Jo Chudley on here tonight.
All right. Go ahead and bring her in. Mary Jo, welcome. How you doing?
How are you? Wonderful. So introduce yourself and tell me all about you, please.
My name is Mary Jo Chudley. I'm from Penn Paranormal. I've been in the paranormal for, seemed like a long time. I've been doing it ever since I was little because, I'm almost 50. So there's not a lot of, back then we couldn't find like TV shows or whatever, people that would do this a lot. So I kind of had to figure some stuff out myself. So that's how I kind of got into it and helped my community and church and everything else.
Right on. Interesting.
So you kind of excited. I've looked you up and I've obviously followed you for a while on Facebook and some other social media. Co-founder of Penn Paranormal, like you stated. If you wouldn't mind, walk us through. You've been into the paranormal since you were a kid. Yeah, I know in your bio you put in there that you live across the street from the cemetery. What did you see at that cemetery?
I grew up in Philadelphia, so there's 4 cemeteries that are actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, and I lived across from that. So as a young child, I would see things coming up the steps a lot, and just crazy things I couldn't explain. And my mom would be like, "You're just seeing stuff." I guess she just figured I had a wild imagination. My brother didn't see it, just me. So I didn't like going upstairs. I never liked going in the basement. I always had to be with somebody, even like with our dog, which was a Weimaraner at the time. I would have to be around her all the time because I felt safe around somebody by myself. Like every time I was by myself, I would see these things. But then we left there and then we moved to, the house, in the suburbs, same thing. Stuff started happening, but not as, they were kind of different. Like I would hear banging and stuff like that. And this entity would always come and try to like bother me at night all the time. So it just seems like it's been happening through my whole life ever since I was little.
Wow.
I never actually saw them in a cemetery. They were actually in my house because we weren't allowed to play in a cemetery.
That's creepy.
So then I'm just trying to lead everybody through how you got where you are, right? So you said you bought your first house in 98. You didn't realize that the area and the surrounding area in that house was haunted when you bought it?
Right. So when we were looking for a house, everybody knew my fear of the paranormal because I didn't even go to haunted houses back then. If a lot of people are aware of Pennsylvania or Philly, there's a place called it's right off 95 and I can't even think of the name of it, but it's a very haunted place. It's like kind of like Penhurst, but it was, a different asylum. So they even had a haunted house there. And I didn't even want to go into it. That's how scared I was of it. So when we bought our new house, we asked the neighbors. My friend lived across the street. Everything was good. And I'm like, okay, this area is okay. She asked the neighbors, hey, how's that house? When I was buying the house from. And he said, everything's fine. And I didn't want them to ask if it was haunted or anything, but I'm like, I just wanted to have, because like every house I've lived in had some kind of problem. Well, we moved in there and sure enough, that area was a satanic area. And I found out after about 2 months of owning the house when things start happening, TV start going on and off, stuff start getting flying off of the shelves, TVs would turn on and off. And it would only do it during the day. which I thought kind of strange. It never would do it at night. It would only do it during the day. I did call my pastor to come out to bless my house within like 3 weeks. And at that time, my son lifted up and got thrown. And I'm like, yes. And doing this in the paranormal for this long, that's the only time I've ever seen anything ever levitate and get thrown.
Whoa.
And I just sat there and started to cry. And then 3 seconds later, my pastor called and said, I'm on my way. And he goes, are you okay? I said, no. And I don't want to say my son's name because he's scared to death of the paranormal, because you can see why. And I'm like, yeah, he just got thrown. And I couldn't move. And he goes, well, just get out of the house. Just take your kids and get out of the house. So I did, because I had 2 of them at the time. And he came and he blessed everything. And he told me what to say. And that scared me to death. And that's when he said, I need you to go to the police. I need you to ask what's around this neighborhood. Anybody died? That's what I did. So I had to start doing that. And I found out that's when behind our house, they were doing satanic worship behind our house. So it was pretty intense. Then everybody in the neighborhood, when I started talking to them, as my kids got older, start happening in everybody else's house as well. Same entity named Marky, a little boy around age of like 4 to 5 years old. The littler kids would sit there and talk to this, and it would sit there and antagonize the kids. Then it started attacking the family. So that's when I started to have to help, because my pastor helped me, but not everybody could get help by their church. So that's when I started helping different families in that area. But there was no ghost hunters. There was like barely any books. So weirdly, I was sitting there watching like Sylvia Brown on Montel Williams, which I know is so stupid, but that was the only medium that was on TV or anybody that would talk about spirits, because it was really taboo. So that's how we start doing stuff like that. So that's how I really became into it, because I started getting more confident and realized, okay, I can help people because nobody else can help them.
Wow.
And that was 98.
I'm curious, and just trying to get a mental image, and if you don't want to say everything. So the spirit, I mean, how big was your son at that time? And how, I don't want to how far he threw him or anything. Was it just kind of like you looked at the kid and he just kind of levitated and threw him, or was he a bigger boy, or what's your thought? What happened there?
So my son was about 3 at that time.
Okay.
So he literally, because where I was sitting on the couch and I was looking straight at him. And in my foyer area, we had actually a mirror door. And I remember looking at the mirror, and like, I don't want to say his name, but I'm like, I saw him looking at it, and I'm like, what are you doing? And that's when he literally, his feet were probably about this high off the ground.
Wow.
And he got thrown. And I would say about 4 to 5 feet, and his head missed the glass mirror door by this much. And he sat there and screamed, and I physically could not move. I was like, I don't know what I just saw. You know what I mean? And I was like frozen. You know, I mean, I didn't see anything. I just seen him lifted up and got thrown backwards. So there's no way he could have jumped like that, nothing like that. And yeah, and he just went flying back.
So it kind of correlates with what you're saying about the Satan worshipers, and talking about the kids that were getting abused. From what you just said, that kind of correlates with that, doesn't it? That they may have reached out to your son like that and abused him just like that, right?
Yeah, it's weird because like when we moved out of my parents' house, because we were saving up for a house, and I just figured my son was going in through some kind of like, you know, I have imaginary friend type thing, you know, stress of not being with my parents and having all these people around. And he was very close with my parents. And so I just figured imaginary friend. So I asked him what his name was, and he said Marky. So he would sit down for a couple, like I would say like a week playing with this thing. I thought it was a normal thing. And because like I didn't know back then. And I remember it's now my ex-husband, he was in the kitchen, and my son said, Mommy, Marky has to go to the bathroom. I said, well, make sure he flushes the toilet. But my son was very close to me. He wasn't even near the bathroom. All of a sudden we heard the toilet flush, and me and my ex looked at each other like, oh my God, what was that? And that's when the activity started, because now I knew that it was there. And yep. I started playing like church music and like, you know, and just like playing him. And that was making it mad when I was doing that, not knowing what I know today. That was probably the biggest not a biggest mistake, but it was pissing it off even more by doing that. And I didn't know that at the time, and every time it did something, I went into a panic and start freaking out, like over, like hyperventilating, call my mom and like mom, the TV just turned. So I was giving it more attention than it needed, knowing that now I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't know, like nobody knew any of that stuff,
Mary Jo, Julianne's asking, was the entity posing as a little boy?
I didn't see it, but yes, my son said it was.
Wow.
And other people in the neighborhood after that said that they thought their son was in their house, and they would go up in the one room. They said, "What are you doing? Are you supposed to be at school?" And this thing turned around and just disappeared, but it had no face. But it was the same size, like child. So this entity was all around our neighborhood. And it probably still is there today, but like I don't live in that neighborhood anymore, but I know some people that still do.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nuts. Huh. So you got out of that. When did you get into become the co-founder of Penn Paranormal? What year did you kind of start into that?
That was probably, see, my mom was very religious. Like I was a deacon in my church. I did a lot in my church.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't like what I did. They were afraid. Not that they didn't like, they were afraid for what I was doing because they're afraid of the evil. My mom did pass away in 2018. So that's when not that I ventured off on myself. I always have done it. But that's when I just started the Facebook page. I'm thinking, okay, my mom's not here. She's not going to be mad if I do it. And out of nowhere, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make a Facebook page and I'm going to do this online because I help people in the community. I'm going to try to do it online as well. So that's when I started that. But I've always done it. But that's when I actually started a quote team and was bringing people in to help us in our area.
Now, that being said, what types of evidence have you found? What's like if you had to pick one of your evidence that you found that is like, hey, there's a guy out here or a person out here that does not believe at all. What have you captured and on what did you capture it that would say, hey, that make that person second guess himself?
I had a case that the wife believed the husband did, and we had to go to their house. And this house was an older house, had a lot of history to it in the town. Like, I mean, a lot of history, but he didn't believe it. And I know this man was under oppression, but he didn't want to he didn't understand that. They didn't want to believe it, to where I had to bring an exorcism, a demonologist, a medium, and a whole bunch of other people to this house and take care of it. But then when we left, because, just because you do this stuff doesn't mean it's going to go away. It comes back. When we left there, I did set up some, equipment for EVPs, not to investigate, just to see if I got any activity after the exorcism. And within 5 minutes, we heard the chillingest child in this house. So even if we banned everything out of the house somewhat, there is an aftershock, stuff like that, but it came right back in or just never left. They're stronger than we thought it was. And I let him listen to that. He goes, yeah, I know that there's definitely something in this house now. Like like I was getting the chills just listening to this EVP. And it was multiple, not just one or two, and pictures and crazy stuff, like things went like crawling up the steps. Like the house was like older and they were doing construction. So when we went in there, you could see handprints, but it looked like it was going backwards up the steps. And when I showed him the pictures, you sure there was nobody in this house? And it wasn't a raccoon hand because they're smaller. Yeah. It was a human hand. And he goes, no. And the look on his face was, that's all he had to say. Do you know what I mean? So that really proved that there is something, spiritual or negative in the afterlife. I think it scared the crap out of them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Grizzly, but that would scare me to death.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have to break out get one of your packs of the holy water and the cross, huh?
Right. Yes, that's incredible.
even just going back into that house to make sure after the exorcism we could still smell the frankincense. As soon as we went to go walk in, I had to, and I don't know how to explain this, but a big surge of energy just kind of stopped me. And I turned around, looked at my husband, like, this is not good. And he goes, "Yep, we're not going in there." Yep, I said, "Nope, we are. They have children. We are going in there. We're going to put the equipment down. We're going to catch this so we can show this is not done yet. So they can't go back in." And my husband didn't want no part of that house, but I feel like I had to go in there and put those cameras up and everything. It's weird. All the video cameras all malfunctioned. Every single one that we put in that house malfunctioned. Only thing it did was the EVP recorders. That was it. All the other ones were all malfunctioning. So when I went
Wow.
back home, yeah, that was probably the most insane house like I've ever been into. The energy was insane. It's like the whole land was cursed.
No, that's awesome that you went back there to, as a good paranormal investigator and a true believer, went back to, they had children and stuff, and really to go in there and do your due diligence to help them with all that you could. So
Right.
that's, I know that, I guarantee they appreciated that. Um, so you talked right around 2018, so 1998 to 2018, you had about 20 years there. Was there anything that led you? You said you had paranormal experiences your whole life and stuff, but in between those 20 years, was there something that you were like, made you think, hey, I've got to just put this stuff together and just got to start doing it?
I would definitely say, I don't know. I know it's going to sound weird, but I think when my mom died, I think she kind of pushed me into even more, if that makes any sense to anybody. Like, I think when our loved ones die, they kind of push us towards um, where we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do in life, why we came here. I know my dad died in 2000, and that's when I actually got, because 98 was when I bought the house. He died 2 years later. I was actually 5 months pregnant with my twins when he died, and just I I always thought, my mom always thought it was evil. Everything was evil if you die. If you go to heaven, you don't come back. But when my dad dying, that's when I start noticing like my hair being tugged, and I would get certain images in my head out of nowhere. And my mom would buy the same butterfly picture frame that my grandmom did, and like so, all of us were like, wait, this is really weird. So for a little point there, my mom was kind of believing that there is life after death, because I would catch, these are not dust, but back in the day, the old camera orbs, like the real ones. So like I would catch like the red, the blue, but it always would be on certain pictures, like with my kids. And I would say to my head, "Hey, Dad, come into this picture. I want to take a picture of you." And it would be there. But the other ones, it wouldn't. In our weddings, we have these strange, like weird late and not. So I know from my dad passing that he was trying to explain to me, okay, there is life after death. When my mom passed away, I feel like she really pushed me into doing it even more. Like, I mean, I did it on the side with, like, with again my town, my family, people that I know, friends I went to school with that they knew I did this. But I think my mom really pushed me into that social media part where you can be bigger, you can do this more, you can help more people if you get on social media. So that's, I think, was more of the push that I had, is to do that.
No, that's awesome. So tell us about being the I'll say, I, my cat's walking around here just a second. Being the headliner ambassador for the first ever Paracon. What was that like? How many people were there? Was it huge? Was it massive? Was it something like now, or was it just like, hey, this is the start, and you knew it was going to be big?
Yeah, so you gotta understand, other countries don't have paracons. They don't have these events. So that was the first ever in that whole area. So don't get me wrong, I was scared because I've only been to Canada. That was it. So you're going to a whole nother country. And there's me with 100 objects on a plane. So you get into like customs and what's in here? Are these collectibles? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, what is it? I'm like, dolls and other objects. They're like, well, they collectibles. I'm like, well, I said I'm going to a Paracon, which is a an event for paranormal and haunted stuff. I'm like, okay, keep it closed. That was it. They let me right through that. They didn't even want to ask me any more questions. They didn't open up. So even like, it was the funniest thing. So I'm thinking, thank God I have to show them all this stuff and ask them what it was. But just Costa Rica itself, the area, the energy is so different than it is here. Like we are in a not a different realm, but we are so different than them. Like you go there, you can feel the power. There's, again, like here, good and bad, but their bad is a different kind of bad. They unbury, as what they were telling me, they unbury the dead and put stuff in there for, to do like witchcraft and voodooism. So it's intense. And we had certain people there, and I didn't realize it when I brought a couple objects there that that they were there to see them. And this is like me bringing Jesus somewhere and everybody's going to want to come see it. And that's kind of like what it was, if you can understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm bringing objects there that were not so good, and people were dying to see them. And a couple of them did some things to them, and I had kind of settled it all down with, the blessings and the holy word and all that stuff, because everything got a little chaotic at one little bit of time. But I was just there to tell them that you shouldn't own haunted objects, and this is what can happen. And my stories were both basically case related. So I had priests in the audience. I had regular people. I had paranormal investigators from all over the world. And then we also had the people that worship the darker side in that audience. So it was a whole bunch of people, and also I had an interpreter because I don't speak Spanish. So that was kind of hard. So like my brain was going 100 miles a minute, and then you have somebody repeating you, and then so it was all good. But again, I was there to show why you shouldn't own this stuff and what it could happen in cases that we've had in here from America. And there was other people from different countries that were just showing their evidence, but I was showing case related that I was allowed to show through the families. Like the worst ones I did have, where I had somebody that was under oppression and ended up killing himself and his girlfriend. So, and I was allowed to talk about that because I was given permission from the parents to talk about and show their pictures and show their evidence that I had. So that was more or less why I was doing that, to show them this stuff is real. It can happen. And, but they understand that there too, I think a little bit more than over here. They don't own haunted objects, and they don't own stuff like that. They don't sell haunted objects. And if they do, it's more of that darker side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you always watch those movies that, I can't remember the 1989 movie or 88 movie. The guys, don't let them bury me, I'm still alive. I remember that movie. I can't remember the name of it though. The Serpent and the Rainbow. That's what it was. But he was in Latin America's, in voodoo and stuff like that, which was pretty neat. So you brought up something there that I know some people that are listening or watching are going to be really interested in. And I say it because Grizz has some of these too. And that's the haunted objects. But specifically, the majority of yours are dolls. Is that correct?
It started out as that because that's what happened is again, I believe that my mom was trying to push me through my path because I would never even have a Ouija board in my house ever. So I really believe that she was kind of pushing me towards my path. But yeah, so most of them are, I mean, don't get me wrong, I got a lot of stuff that people hand me and say they're haunted, and they just kind of sit, it's actually in this room, and they sit in the side, and I don't investigate them. Certain ones I do when people ask me like, what did you get? Or are you getting the same experience that I was getting? So I do for a little bit, but then they come up in this room, and this room is kind of, they stay in this room, and I don't bother them. I don't investigate with them after that. So yeah, so I guess half of them are dolls.
So the objects, I mean, so you just went through a statement that some people give them to you because they believe that they're haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? That's kind of what I took out of that. So have you seen anything with them that would make you feel as though they are haunted as well? I'm sure I would think you have.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Like there's one clown that I got from a girl from TikTok. And don't get me wrong, she messaged me, and then I guess because my TikTok has a little bit higher following, and TikTok is not just about paranormal. I do fun things because that's what TikTok's about. And I do throw educational stuff and also evidence in there as well, so people can see that too. But she did contact me and say, listen, I have this doll that I got from my grandmother and it's bad. And she was, I think it's, a demon spirit. As soon as I got it in that house, my husband started doing this to me and doing that to me. So I'm like, okay. So I did watch some of her videos. She did send me some evidence. I said, well, let me talk to my husband and make sure, because I already have a couple bad things. I don't want too many bad things because I don't want that to overpower and make my house go, just go crazy. So that next morning, I did give her my address and stuff, but the next morning I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. So I just told her kind of like, no. And she was, I already sent it out. I'm like, okay. So I was just like, okay. She actually said it the day before because she just wanted this going because she's having a grandson and she didn't want any problems. And, but the day that it arrived to my house, I pulled in my driveway. I had really fast migraine on top of my head. It was the right side. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm thinking, okay, it's allergies. It's related because, the windows were open. And then I looked on the porch. I'm like, oh no. So that's when I took my phone out. I started videotaping it. And for 2 weeks straight, I was sick with the migraine and like dizzy. I wrote all this down. So I have it in like, just so I have it. I even got a COVID test done just so you can't say that it was COVID because at that time it was a little bit still going on. And one day I took it to a psychic fair that I was a part of, that I was a vendor, but like I was a speaker. So I brought this doll, didn't tell anybody about it, had a medium in the car for the 5-hour car drive. And he goes, something is just not right back there. And he just kept saying to me, he goes, what do you have back there? I'm like, this is my regular stuff. So he had no idea, but he went to go pick it up to put on the table and then had such a migraine, like he thought he was going to throw up for about 3 hours. So everybody that came to my table was, oh my God, what is that? So that kind of confirms of certain things. That's what I do. I don't tell people. I say, hey, listen, can you read this? And I don't get me wrong. I throw in some ones that aren't haunted just to see what people say. Oh, there ain't nothing to that. I'm like, okay. And then, but that's what I do to test people. But then again, I test it when it comes in my house. I leave it in my kitchen for a couple weeks. And if I start hearing stuff, I write it down. And then I'll reach out to the person. Hey, listen, can you send me that letter now? What's going on in your house? What happened? Blah, blah, blah. And usually it will coincide with what they're having that same effect. So yeah, I do that. And those ones that I believe by feeling it, that it has something wrong with it, I do that. But the other ones, I kind of look at it. I'm like, okay, I'll leave it in the kitchen. If nothing happens, I put it up in the room and it kind of stays in the corner with the rest of the ones I don't think there's nothing really to it. But I don't know. So I keep it in that corner. So it just stays there and still out of, if there is anything with it, it's still out of harm's way. It's still there and protected by everything else.
I'm glad to hear that you ask your husband first, though, before you do that. My wife would kill me if I came in or something like that. That was 100. So out of those objects, have you brought anything home from one of your hunts that you have as an object? Because the way I heard it, there's some people give it to you, but have you gone anywhere and had something that you felt was attached to, well, even to yourself or to an object that you have at the house?
Is it like a client house or like, like
your
a location?
Yeah, anywhere that you've been that you were like, you felt that thing there had something with it. Or has there been something that attached to you in any way, shape, or form? It's kind of a 2-question thing. Sorry.
So, I'll say with the attachment. Now, when I did come home from Costa Rica, I was not myself for a while, and I just thought I was depressed, or I was a lot going on in that couple of months. Like you have Halloween, then I had the Warrens Paracon, then I went right to Costa Rica. And then 2 weeks later, my dog died. So I just thought it was all I was just so overwhelmed with all that. But it lasted for like almost a year. So I did have a medium like read me and cleanse me. And she did say that I had attachments on me from people in America and people from other countries, but she didn't specifically say. But there was a couple really bad attachments that was put on me for that same reason. So she did clear it. And let me tell you, I was like day and night the next day. So I did have some attachments. I didn't feel it. I just knew I was very depressed and overwhelmed. And that's all I felt, was so overwhelmed that I could not function every single day. But she took that from me, and then it was like all this lifted off. So I did have that happen, and that was just done maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. But a total change, even just in my mental status. Like before, everything was bothering me. Anybody would say anything on the internet would bother me. Now I'm like, oh well, it's okay. That's how I'm like, oh well, it's okay, and I'm back to where I am normally. Now, client wise and home wise, I've been to a couple of houses where I see something or somebody sends me a picture. I'm like, do not bring that home. You better go back around and take that back to the store because you do not want. So that I can feel, and it's the weirdest thing. I get this gut feeling like I'm going to throw up, or a feeling that I have to have it. That's the feelings I get when I know there's something attached to that object. But there's plenty of people that I've told them, do not bring that home. And they did. And months later, they called me to come to remove that object from their home.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And these are not even paranormal people. These are just people that I know in my town, friends, or people I went to high school with. I'm like, nope, don't take it back. Take it back. And they didn't. And I ended up getting them.
There you go. Grizz, I don't think I've ever asked you. Have you ever had an attachment?
I don't know if I've actually full-fledged had. I know I had some issues, but with prayers and blessings and holy water and so forth, I got rid of it. So I guess I probably had.
Okay. So before we get away from the object stuff, you were in, what was it, USA Today, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that, if you don't mind?
I think it was 2022. I think it was.
Oh, so it was recent. I apologize for not knowing that. So that what was that experience like? I mean, people that not everyday people get to go through something like that. It's such a high profile magazine, or what was that experience like for you?
It was kind of funny because I don't let anybody in my house because of the things that I have. So, I mean, nobody comes to my house at all. So they had to come to my house. I let them know you can't touch anything. And if you go to open anything, I will tackle you. That's why I say because I don't want you opening anything that's not supposed to be. The really bad things never leave my house, just so everybody understands that. So I do have a couple bad ones that it does not leave. I don't touch them. I don't go near them. Nothing. I don't even look at them. So that stuff stays there. But yeah, so they came in and the one guy literally standed outside the door and said, I will take the video and pictures from here. He would, because he said the energy that he got, he did not like it. And I guess because I'm used to it, not everybody is. So he did not like that feeling. And he stood by the door and literally just took the pictures from the door. And we went downstairs to my kitchen and did the interview.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was but they're not into the paranormal and stuff like that. So, but, if I didn't tell him, would he still came up here? I don't know. I don't know if it was a mental thing, but he would not go past that door. And I said, don't worry, nothing's going to harm you. I promise. He goes, nope, I can feel it from here. I am not coming in here. And I did have two friends of mine, which I did record, come in my house just to validate what they feel. And they're not the ones that would fake anything. They're honest as can be. And they're like, whoa, as soon as I open up the door, they can feel it. It was so intense. I don't know how long I can sit here. How do you sit in that room and do podcasts? I'm like, as long as I'm in here for an hour or two, I'm good. I can't stay in here any longer because I start getting dizzy. My ear starts to ring. I start getting headaches. I said, I can't be in here long, but I can be in here. They couldn't be here more than I think it was maybe 15 minutes and they had to leave. So.
Wow. So I'm thinking back to when your son must have been younger, in his teens, and his friends coming over, and seeing all that stuff. That must have, some of the kids probably thought it was cool as could be, and some of the kids were probably scared. If that happened at all, I'm just thinking,
Well, no, we didn't have this stuff then. I would never bring that stuff in I didn't get my first thing until I think it was 2020 is when I brought the dolls home, not knowing what they were. Or not thinking they were what they were. So my kids were all grown out of the house. I would never, ever keep this if I had younger kids here. Absolutely not. It would be in a storage shed somewhere or be in you know what I mean? No. Yeah, definitely. We didn't have Ouija boards back then because I played with a Ouija board when I was a child, and that scared me. My grandma, because back then, like again, I'm gonna be 50, so that was kind of popular back then. And me and my friend played it, and it said it was the devil. We said prove it, and it started making all this banging. And I'm like, and my grandma's like, "What did you just do?" I'm like, "I don't know." And she just took it and threw it up in the closet. And I know some people say that it can't be that way, or our instruments, meaning our EVPs or our ghost box can do the same thing. Yes, I agree, but something about a Ouija board, I don't know if it's just that's what I was brought up to understand, but and we never felt right going to that basement after that. Like we never did. Even my grandma didn't like it, and yeah, so she got rid of that Ouija board really fast, and we never had one since.
No, it's cool.
Wow.
So after you started Pin Paranormal, uh, you're doing what you're doing now, which is awesome. So I wanted to ask you about what a lot of people ask me. What's your go-to? It kind of sounds like EVP to me, but what's your go-to instrument, and what other type of equipment do you use when you're out there hunting or investigating?
Say, okay, so for social media, because people want to learn and see that stuff, they want to see lights all the time, lights, lights, lights. So I have a tripwire, which is, little EMFs all over it. So you could put it around something, and it will show you where the entity or the energy goes to, or they can manipulate it to go off. I use that a lot on lives because people like that, and they can see the colors and the lights. And there's a couple other things I use for that. I am old school. I do like the recorder. I record everything. So I might have like a body camera in this room, and I'll have, VHS cameras over here. And they're all over the place because I want to see it. I want to hear it, so I can go back if something ever happened. I can say, look, this happened. But again, every, I guess every location is different. I used to like the ghost box, but not that, people are skeptics with that. But when you go to a location and you get only that stuff, how can that be? Like if I go say Jenny Wade House in Gettysburg, it said, soldier shot, making bread, this and that. And then I go to Penhurst and they're talking about, doctors and strapped and can't talk and toys. They totally different. To me, it's believable, but for some people, it's not. But if I have a voice that comes up that only one person or two people were there, and that's not their voice, you can't say that's not paranormal in a way if you have nothing else around us. So I like to try to prove as much possible that it is paranormal and not just a piece of equipment making lights and sound or a word bank. It's nice to have, but you know, to me, I'm kind of more old school with the cameras and the EVP.
That's cool. Um, so what do you think has gotten you so, lack of a better word, popular, right? What do you think's made you different, that all these places wanted to reach out to you and to get you to come on their shows and to get you, was it something you were so persistent with, or was it something that they were reaching out to you? And what do you think was the reasoning for you to get kind of this celebrity status in the
Oh, some
paranormal field?
yeah. Well, I don't think I'm a celebrity. I like to help people. I know that that helps. You know what I mean? Some of those places do call me when they need help. Like we had a place that no longer is running. They had some weird phenomenon, and they called a couple of us people. And it's funny because a lot of these people I didn't know, but they were big in the field. But I wasn't really, I guess, on social media to do that. I just did my own thing and just but we figured it out, and that's kind of what it is. It's just trying to help people. I try to post as much as I can with, you know, being spiritual, and I have all different kinds of friends. Like I'm Christian, but I have people that do witchcraft, and they do all different other things because sometimes if I can't figure it out, they can, because we don't know. We're not dead, obviously. So I think just working with different people, I think that helps a lot. And just I think it's a loyalty thing too. I respect everybody and what they do, and I respect their opinion with everything because we're here to learn. I'm not here to judge anybody. And I think that helps a lot too. If somebody's going to say, hey, listen, I don't believe that. I'm like, well, tell me what you believe. Because I do listen to that. When I put stuff up, they're like, well, I think it's this. Like I have a dog cabinet that constantly opens up if I keep it closed because it doesn't like to be closed. And somebody said, well, why don't you put a camera here, here, and here? I'm like, good, I will. I bought all these little cameras, had them all over the place. Showed that I wasn't coming in my house, pulling it open, and that I'm slamming it shut. And I had a humidity thing in here and humidity outside to show that it's not humidity that's making it open. You know, everything that people suggested I did, you know, to prove what else could it be, you know. But then again, that's what we're here to do. We're here to prove it, not here to judge. So I think that helps a lot too. That's why people let us become one, because I respect everybody, and most people respect me back, you know, as well, because I try to debunk it. I try, you know.
That's a great answer, right? And you know, mentoring people and helping your community, and from the few things that I've watched you on, and just from this conversation here, you can tell that you're a genuine person. And as the saying goes, you know, when you're a genuine person, good things come your way, right?
Yeah, I'm not trying to be famous. I'm not trying to be on TV. I always tell everybody, if I can shut off Facebook now, I would. I'll still be doing this. It's, you know what I mean? Because I love
Agreed.
it. It's what I believe this is what my path was. I believe from a very young age, God, or I believe in God, but whatever people believe in, their higher spirit was making me do this certain things, become to where I'm at now. Because I've gotten things thrown at me in this own room here. And I would just, and I usually have cameras up in this room, but my senior dogs, they passed away, but I had them downstairs so I can watch them as, you know, when I'm at work. But I always would have cameras up here. A couple times I had to come in here and I got things thrown at me. And I would go to work because I work in the medical field. I'm like, hey, look at this. I would show them, like, you're insane. How do you not run out of that room? But I believe if God didn't put me through all the stuff I had to go through, I probably would have run out of my room. I would not be as not scared as I am. You know what I mean? Like things at Waverly, I was by myself and things were grabbing me, hitting me. I'm seeing full body like, you know, big black masses running in front of me. And I'm just like, yeah. And I'm running after it. If that was 20 years ago, I probably would stand in a corner and be crying. So I just believe that was always my path. And I just had to work up to that.
So you said you had 6 of your objects at the Pine Bush UFO Museum.
Mm-hmm.
That intrigues me because, you know, when I hear that, I'm assuming that they're associated with UFOs, right?
No.
Or not?
So
But I'm curious.
no. So they have like the UFO part, and then they have the paranormal part. So most of it is paranormal, but there's one section where most of it's UFO, and then the other section is just paranormal.
Okay. But while we're talking about it, you know, there's been a lot of new stuff it's kind of tamed down a little bit for a while there, though, man. Everything you'd see on Facebook was about UFOs, you know, UFOs, cryptid, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever done any investigations in any of the cryptids or UFOs?
So I definitely believe there's aliens. Not to be mean, but it'd be stupid not to believe that. This universe is huge. You can't say we're the only ones here. And aliens scare me because I don't know how to protect myself from them. And everybody knows that. So, and I haven't investigated, but I've noticed really high paranormal places have aliens, like the Conjuring House. I love the Conjuring House. It's one of my favorite places to go. And that is one that is said to have aliens all the time. And it's funny because I was outside one time and I had a live EVP recorder on, and I was on a live Facebook, but they couldn't hear what I was hearing. And I sounded like something was running out of the woods at me. And I thought it was a huge bear. And I'm looking around for this bear and they're all freaking out because they're like, oh my God, there's a bear coming at you. I could hear it, but I couldn't see it. And I didn't feel it was a ghost. I thought it was something else. But where I was this rock formation that's outside that house that I always would sit at because I could feel the energy there. And it come to find out from one of the parent daughters that, yeah, there is UFOs right there. And that was one spot. And other people that worked there said, there's a lot of UFOs there. So I believe that there definitely is there. And I think they said the Hinsdale house. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought they said the Hinsdale house was another one that has a lot of aliens, which I believe because when I went there, I said to my husband, as soon as we pulled up, this feels like the Conjuring house. The whole area, that land feels like the Conjuring house.
You know, if you watch the documentary Sleepless Unrest, it's on the Conjuring house, and they set up cameras out in the forest around it, the woods right around it, and they were catching all these different lights. Yeah, it's really weird. If you ever get a chance, I'd suggest watching it. But Grizzly and I, we've been talking to some different people that have been at the Conjuring house as well. And what have they been talking about, Grizz, that's out there in the woods?
Bigfoot.
There's a firm belief from a lot of people that are camping out there and stuff now that there's knocking in the woods. There's all that stuff that would suggest that there's a Bigfoot out there. So, you know, when you saw it, you said you felt like a bear running at you or heard noises on there. It could be possible it was that, don't you think, Chris?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So it could be that could have been aliens, whatever. But yeah, we agree with you. The Conjuring house is definitely something that's very likely, and the same thing with Daniel's Hinsdale house. That's I've had a lot of people I've talked to that. They swear up and down that that's like one of the spookiest places they've ever stayed.
Hmm.
So then you do a lot of paracons, right? You take your haunted objects with you, and like you said, going overseas, they had to check them in the baggage and all that. That'd been weird for them. Like you said, I'd been like, yeah, you don't have to open it, just take it on in. But
Yeah.
you know, I unfortunately have never been to a Paracon. It's one of the things. I'm from St. Louis. I be honest with you, I don't even know if there's even been one around here. If it is, it's not advertised too well, you know. And I own like Paralink.com. There's nobody on that that has suggested any of that. And then there's different sites I go to, even Paracon sites. You would think. I know there's like Horror Fest, people that dress up like, you know, Freddy Krueger and stuff like that around Halloween. There's a big one there every year. So when you go there, I'm assuming you talk about all your investigations you've been through. Have you ever written a book or put any of this stuff down on paper?
I have it on paper, but I've never wrote a book. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, a lot of people that I know and have talked to as well too. They started, you know, after like 4 or 5 years of it with the really interesting stuff. They've either put it on paper or actually done documentaries on it and stuff too on different houses. The House in Between's a pretty good documentary too. Have you ever been on any documentaries? I know you've been on different shows, the haunted hospitals, that section, a few other things. But have you ever been in a documentary yourself?
No. Mm-mm. I know my one friend, she does filming and she was going to start doing that. And her dad got sick, so that had to be put off. But she was going to do it of because she sees like personally what I do. Like I work during the day and then when I come home, I'm like, talking to clients doing this and in between going to their houses and going to the things on the weekends. And so she sees how like crazy my life is. But she wanted to do that. But again, her dad was sick for a little bit, and he did pass away. But she's doing stuff. He's an artist, so she's doing this big thing for him. And she said when that's done, then she's going to continue. I'm like, take your time. That is more important. I will still be here. So she's doing that for her father first, and then we'll continue later on. You know,
So um, you're sorry, I'm trying
hi
to get
Stephanie.
it's yeah, I'm trying to get everything in my head here. So if you had to choose a place that you wanted to do that documentary, where would you choose that place?
It was that one house I was telling you about. But when we went there, I said no filming. I told, the demonologist this, that, and the other. This is a case. This is not for film. They're not into that. This is we're cleaning the house and going. Because that demonologist was picked by the homeowner. Not saying that I wouldn't use him at that time. I would have used somebody a little different, but that's a personal choice. They wanted to use him, and I just made sure this is not going to be, you know, something for TV. These are people. They're, I mean, yeah, they got an extremely haunted house that a lot of people know about, and I like this is not for TV. But if they ever did, or they ever sold that house, that would be something I would take just to hold it off from people. You don't want people living in that house, and I don't think it would ever be fixed. It's something that's, I think a lot worse than The Conjuring, a lot worse than The Conjuring. But that's just me. But that would be one I would do a documentary on, without a doubt. That would definitely be one. Just the emotions I got there, and me talking to the homeowners until like 4 or 5 in the morning, and me asking to take their guns out of their houses, and the dreams that they were having. These are normal people. They own businesses. They're not like, you can. I work in a medical field, so I can kind of I can kind of see like if people are not all there. These people were completely fine, and then within a month, just went insane. And that's why we went. That's it. We need to go now. We just stop everything. Just go now. We did. We just stopped everything and just went. It got that bad that fast. So, but that would definitely be something that I would definitely do a documentary on. Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely, I'd like to see that. That'd be pretty neat. I do like the paranormal documentaries. I try to catch as many as I can. So I tell you what, Grizzly, I don't know about you, but this has been a pretty good interview.
Yes, absolutely. Very enjoyable.
We really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes. And how does everybody find you and follow you?
They can go to Penn Paranormal on Facebook. And there you'll see like our logo. There's two of them. We're the separate name. There's like Penn and separate than Paranormal. You can find me on Facebook, Mary Jo Chudley. I'll answer that. Yeah, we answer that, and even on Instagram. We have a TikTok, but again, that's too hard to message me on there because it's just a bigger following, and there's a lot of messages. But definitely Facebook is where you would have to contact me the best if you need anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, we got a show at 9:00 Eastern time. Well, thank you again, Mary Jo, and thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
And you all have a good night. We'll see you shortly from coast to coast around the world. Godspeed. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.